How's it going, Star Seekers? My name's Luke and welcome back to the channel. In this indie game review we're going to be taking a look at Die With Glory, an adventure game which sees you guiding Sigurd, a legendary Viking warrior, to a glorious death so that he can finally retire to the afterlife in Valhallah. Unfortunately, an honourous death is more difficult than it first seems though, and each of the game's scenarios present you with multiple branching paths leading to alternate outcomes for our hero. If you enjoy point and click style adventure games, then you're probably thinking that Die With Glory will be right up your alley, but I advise that you don't rush to buy the game before watching this review and seeing what the game really has to offer. So I'll start by saying that Die With Glory initially appeared on the Apple and Android mobile app stores in 2017. A few months later it was then available on Steam, and now several years on, it's finally making an appearance on consoles. The game received mixed ratings on both Steam and mobile platforms, so going into it I was already feeling pretty dubious about the quality of its gameplay, and after playing my way through the game, I came away feeling both pleasantly surprised and bitterly disappointed. So upon starting the game, we get a short cutscene depicting Sigurd's journey through life, from a young child in the crib to a mighty Viking warrior who saves a ginger-haired Valkyrie from the clutches of a giant rock monster. The Valkyrie then falls in love with Sigurd, and now she wishes to repay him by resurrecting him each time he fails to make the strict criteria for entry into Valhalla, the Viking version of heaven where only the mightiest warriors go after death. Now the first level of the game acts as an introduction to the controls and a few basic gameplay mechanics, and while Die By Glory was originally a point and click adventure designed with touchscreens in mind, it actually feels right at home on the Switch with a controller in hand, and this new control scheme is pretty simple. We're able to move Sigurd with the left thumbstick, but our movement is limited to either walking left or right, and when we approach objects that we can interact with using the A button, a red circle will appear, which is no doubt left over from the touchscreen prompts. These interactions include things like inspecting points of interest, talking to people, picking up items, or using said items on other objects, like here for example where we grab this axe and use it to chop down this tree. On the whole, this method of interacting with the world works pretty well, but there are some issues when it comes to transitioning in and out of buildings, and especially with the game's platforming elements. This is mainly due to multiple action prompts being on the screen at the same time, which frequently resulted in misclicks, especially when faster inputs were required in certain levels' platforming sections. So after completing the first level, Sigurd wakes up in a tavern which acts as the game's level select menu. As with all of the game's levels, I thought this area had some wonderful visuals, and there are plenty of people to interact with, making things much more interesting than navigating a boring text-based menu. Now to begin a level, you're required to select which version of the story you want Sigurd to tell, and each story defines the version of events which occur and the criteria which must be met to complete them. To give an example, if you decide to tell the story where you save the Red Knight Joss from certain death, but he then dies in the level, then the game will rewind, allowing you to replay a section of it until you achieve the required outcome. This also holds true for other objectives, meaning there's no real way of deviating from the story once you begin it. Now levels themselves are all pretty varied, but the overarching goal of each level is to obtain a weapon, find yourself a mighty foe to engage in combat with, and then die at the hands of them, thus securing your passage into Valhalla. As stated before though, this is easier said than done, and each level contains a number of different objectives for you to complete in order to attain the above mentioned criteria. Now if you've ever played a point and click adventure before, then you should be pretty familiar with the format in which Die By Glory's objectives are presented. Each level takes place on a single screen, which is large enough to require the screen to pan, but simple enough that there's no chance of getting lost in them, and gameplay generally sees you searching levels for items, interacting with different characters and objects, and partaking in the odd puzzle or minigame. In comparison to most other point and click adventure games I've played though, Die With Glory is incredibly easy, as it's near impossible to miss objects, the game's puzzles are all rather simple, and about the only struggle I had, bar the awkward platforming elements, were the times when you had to speak to people and select the correct set of responses in order to receive an item that you required. This lack of challenge may disappoint fans of the genre, but on the flip side it allows for a very casual gameplay experience and it makes the game accessible to even the youngest of audiences. Now, including the intro level, Die with Glory only contains 6 different levels, which in all really isn't a lot of content. However, each stage has multiple versions of the same story, and completing one version of the truth will unlock a follow-up story for the next level. What this essentially means is that in order to play through all of Sigurd's stories, you need to complete the same level multiple times, which was fine in the first few levels, as each level of the story contained different elements within them and alternate versions of puzzles, but after this things sort of went downhill. I started to find that levels require you to undertake near identical sets of actions in order to complete them, and this really does just leave the game feeling half finished, as though the developers perhaps ran out of time or couldn't pull together enough ideas to make each story unique. On top of this, after you complete the 6th level and head on towards the 7th, you'll find that the tavern abruptly ends, at which point your Valkyrie lady friend will tell you that the adventures of Sigurd will continue in the 2nd chapter, and this is followed by a short teaser cutscene. Now, unfortunately, I haven't actually been able to find anything regarding the ongoing development of Chapter 2, so it's likely that this 4-year-old project has actually been abandoned, and I wouldn't pin your hopes on ever seeing Sigurd reach Valhalla. Now, I thought that Die by Glory had some interesting gameplay elements. I especially liked the time travelling antics found in one of the game's levels, and the branching story arcs reminded me a lot of those choose your own adventure games. I enjoyed exploring the outcomes of different versions of events, and had the game kept up with the variety that it displays in the first couple of levels, then I would have been happy to recommend it as a fun little action adventure game. Sadly though, this is not the case, as the game runs out of steam after only a few levels, and I thought this was a real shame, as the game's visuals are pretty great and it's rather sad to see them going to waste like this. I love the vibrant colour palettes of the levels and the attention to detail in them, and the ending cutscenes of each story were also very well done, which in contrast to the game's vibrant visuals were depicted using some stylish black and white line drawings. Now, on the audio side of things, we do get some decent sound effects and some relatively generic in-game music, but we also get the odd occasion where character dialogue is actually voiced, which, although limited in its quantity, really brought the characters to life. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I did have a little fun playing Die with Glory, but when it comes down to it, I can't help but feel like the game is just another case of a developer trying to claw back a little money on a failed project. Either that or the publisher Chili Dog Interactive has bought the rights to the game and is wanting to make a quick buck on the Switch eShop. Regardless of whether or not this is the case though, for a rating, I'm going to be giving Die with Glory 2 out of 5 stars. Die with Glory is fun while it lasts, but overall it's just incomplete, containing around 3 hours worth of gameplay in total, and I can't recommend picking it up unless you can get it with a hefty discount and are just looking for something to pass a couple of hours with. Die with Glory releases on the 26th of March, and you can pick it up from the UK Switch eShop for £6.29 or from the US eShop for $6.99. Alternatively, the game's also available on the Apple and Android app stores and Steam. And that's about it for this review of Die with Glory on the Nintendo Switch. Make sure to hit that like button if it helped you out, let me know your thoughts and opinions on the game and this review in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as I publish new Switch reviews and content every couple of days. For now though, I just want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.